Hello and welcome to another episode of Casual Friday, the podcast where the famed journalist and comedian CryptoCred talks to real traders. And thankfully, this week I've got one with me. CryptoDonAlt has found the time to come on the show. Thank you for sparing some of your very, very valuable Litecoin longing time to speak with our audience. I'm sure they'll appreciate to have a real trader on the channel. So we're very grateful
Jesus
for your
Christ.
appearance.
What an intro. What an intro. I don't even know what to say. It's just oh no. I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to this one.
I wonder
Because
why. Is it because
I'm gonna
Litecoin is
take
down 2.5%? That's what it is, isn't it?
oh yeah, but I mean that's the best thing. I actually even predicted that one. So
Oh, wow.
it's just all around great. It's gonna be a victory lap from me this week.
That's it. Half the
Yes.
people just clicked off. A victory lap from Don. It's like, oh, it's just like last week's episode then, and the week before that, and the week before that.
Exactly.
Oh,
That's
man.
my entire personality, I've been told, which I'm down.
That's rough. That's rough. Especially because, Europeans are supposed to be riddled by like imposter syndrome and humility. So if you don't fall
Oh
into
no,
that
it's not me.
category, yeah,
No,
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 no.
it's not me. Humility? What's that? I've never heard of
Yeah, I know. Yeah, maybe
it.
maybe there's an issue right there. More importantly, I cut my hair and my beard. My beard's completely gone, and the market turbo rallied. And so from that sample size of one, I can quite comfortably infer that there is signal there. So as my beard starts to grow back, and alongside my hair, the market will pull back, and then if I shave it again, that's the next leg.
No, no,
So
you just have to like go to like a beauty salon and have your chest hair ripped out, and then you're
oh
gonna go
my
to
god.
infinity. Just do it fast, dude.
That would take too many days out of my life to to get all the
No, no,
chest
no,
hair.
no, no. Do you have to do it? I need it. I need it. I'm,
You
I'm,
need
I'm
it.
having a child, dude. I need some more money. Needs to go up further.
Yeah, it's true. Well, it's done a fair job so far, to be fair, Don.
Ah, it's enough. Yeah.
It's something. It's a start. It's one weekly candle, but it's quite the move. Sort of,
Very, very substantial, I think, especially given where it came from and where we are right now, which is basically the price point where we broke down before because of the FTX saga,
mhm.
right? So reclaiming all of that price action is massive in my eyes,
It's like it never happened,
especially.
right?
I wish. But I mean, especially given that the S&P is not doing anything. This is completely crypto based. This is what we've been waiting for. This is kind of, I mean, I hate to say it because this is gonna jinx it,
Here we
but
go.
this is the decoupling.
Oh, he said it. The D word.
The D word, yeah. You're not allowed to say it, but I mean, I haven't seen anyone say it. Maybe everyone's afraid to say it, but yeah, it's been at least a decoupled event.
Mm.
And that's a good first step. And it's a really, really important first step. And it couldn't have come at a better time given
I'm
that
long.
one, one, I bought,
Yeah.
and two, I bought some more. And three, it's because we had a shitload of bad news and we went up regardless and we went up hard and we went up without the S&P. Like you couldn't wish for anything more than that.
And
Uh,
Bitcoin dominant, at least the
oh,
second.
yes.
Well, just broadly, especially more
I mean,
recently.
the last two
Yeah.
days has. I mean, you see altcoins across the board, even the strong ones, down on the USD pair today, while
Yeah.
Bitcoin's up 2.5%, which is great. This is what you want to see because how this usually goes at like macro bottoms. Hate to say it because I don't want to jinx it, but
Man, you
at
said
macro
macro
bottoms,
bottom and decoupling in the first like 6 minutes. This is a very special episode.
oh yeah, it is. No, but usually at macro bottoms, Bitcoin rallies too fast for stuff to keep up with, and that's a good sign. And then Bitcoin goes up and up and up, and altcoin holders get fucked like hard, not making any money. And the moment they start capitulating left and right, the Bitcoin people, basically the people that were smart enough to buy at least some Bitcoin, start rotating back into altcoins to take advantage of that weakness. Because at the end of these kind of rallies, you get a stronger influx of retail. We haven't seen any of that yet. I think in general, this is mainly like a crypto kind of native move more than anything. So we're setting up for something that is could be quite good. And I mean, the charts are starting to look really, really good as well. Not only for the altcoins that we talked about last week, because I mean the altcoins front ran this. Litecoin looked amazing 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a month ago. Bitcoin wasn't really having it. Now Bitcoin's been catching up. It's obviously led to weakness in other coins just based on the fact that people tend to kind of just all in altcoins when they think the market has bottomed. And then the market actually goes up and they realize that there's a good chance that Bitcoin's just going to solo rally. So they sell off some of the altcoins to kind of get some Bitcoin exposure, because most people, I don't think anyone has ever enough Bitcoin exposure. It's usually like you buy a bunch and then you're like, oh, but I want to buy this too and that and that. And then suddenly you have like 10% of your portfolio in Bitcoin, which is way too little. And then you have to kind of rebase your portfolio. And I think that's kind of like one of the parts why when you have these aggressive moves to the upside, people just basically get FOMO. Because I think every single altcoin holder deep down knows that the only thing that really matters is Bitcoin price. And they start feeling very, very insecure the moment you get like bigger Bitcoin moves where the altcoins don't go up. I think that's what we're seeing right now, which
Thanks
is a
for
good thing.
psychoanalyzing the entire community there. Very, very charitable of you. As far as where this has led us, so I mean, the monthly still got 18 days to go, but obviously approaching 1920k, right? The sort of breakdown, pre-breakdown cluster. The weekly's probably, I mean, the weekly and the daily are the crazy timeframes, really.
Oh yeah.
So on the weekly, you know, the market did nothing for like 2 months, and then this one candle we have at the moment, which is still 2 days away from closing, is pretty meaty. That's a big boy right there. Now, in terms of where it's ended up, it's basically retesting the underside of the range that broke down. There are several ways you can draw it. As long, you know, I think anything from like 19 to, like my level, for example, is the first lowest weekly close before the bounce from the 27th of June. That's one of the ones I have at like 19.3. But I think at this point, there's no real point, you know, there isn't much benefit to majoring in the minors. Like, is it 19.1? Is it 19.3? It's like, look, 1920k is like more or less the same level. You know, the lows of the summer range. You can slice it or chop it whichever way you want. Now, I saw you, as always, having a spirited debate on Twitter. Thankfully, it wasn't about dating or incels or Ukraine or any of those other topics. Thank God. Instead, it was about charts. And the argument being made on Twitter was that, you know, in line with the trend, given we're in the technicals are in a downtrend, this is a counter-trend rally, and that counter-trend rally has now reached a retest level or a retest of resistance, where, if the trend is going to continue, you might expect a lower high to form, and references made to this kind of 19k level or whatever else. Do you agree with the argument in theory? Do you agree with it in theory and disagree with it in practice? Kind of, what's your view on the prevailing take or narrative that this is some form of a bearish retest into 19k plus?
I think it's a shitty argument. I mean, I said it in that argument as well. It was with Jets. Basically, he was arguing that you have to short this because it's a bearish retest. And I was saying, like, when you have, there's much, much more important things than price, as weird as that sounds.
Love, family, art.
Exactly. No, but I mean, the thing is, you have to kind of analyze what the market should be doing and what it is doing. That's the most important thing. Like, if you just look at the chart and you're like, okay, there's a line here, there's a line there, that's one thing of the picture. But I think it's just like, it's very, very like 100 IQ at best play, more like an 80 IQ thing, where, I mean, if it's not a bear market, that might work just bullishly. But I think what's much, much more important than just drawing the line is also just thinking about, okay, what should be happening, what is happening, right? Point number one is we had a bunch of bad news. We had a bunch of uncertainty in the market, right? In those 2 months of sideways trading, right? We didn't move a single bit. We had a bunch of like really, really bad news. Nothing happened. And then we start walking up, and this is on the lower time frames. If you look at the lower time frames, I don't know how any sane person shorted this move. Like, it makes zero sense to me. Because one, we had that complete like disregard of the negative news we've had. All of it got absorbed. And then two, we had this orderly walk up. And this is something, if you're shorting this in crypto, you've just not been trading it long enough, because these kind of moves up, these slow grinds up that have like very little wicks to the downside, and just like you have like 10 green candles in a row that just go in the same direction, as in you can just draw a straight line through it. The moment they start accelerating to the upside, right? The moment they start approaching resistance, especially if this is like in the middle of a range going towards the range high, they almost always explode up. It's a very rare pattern. It's very rare that this kind of occurs, but if you want to have like a good example on a high time frame, you just go on the weekly and you look at the February of 2019, where you have like a really, really good example of it, right? January, February, like that move up from the general bear market lows. It was just that you could draw a straight line for it. And then like these kind of moves into resistance. Back then I had the same argument with, I think, probably the same people too. I was like, you don't want to be fucking shorting this. It makes no sense because it's a walk up into resistance. This is most likely gonna pop. Like almost always in crypto, this goes to the upside. And I mean, we saw the same thing here on the daily time frame in this range. We walked up slowly to resistance, gained speed towards the resistance, and then completely blew out people that were shorting it. And so I'm saying like, one, I don't even agree that this was like a bearish retest that you had to short, given the fact that if you just look on the daily time frame, we had a breakout to the upside that got completely faded, right? A false breakout above the daily range, above 17.5K. That went back down, but never reached the low of the range. And then the moment you come back there, like, why do you come back there, right? Why would you be trading back in that area? And I mean, the only reason that made sense in this specific circumstance to me was that it wanted to go higher, right? Because you had enough FUD, you had enough like negative press that you could have gone down to new lows if you wanted to, off of like a pattern like this, but it didn't. And then you have like a really, really strong argument that it just wants to go up. And that was kind of my view. And so I like back then, even before it broke out, I was like, this is like a high conviction setup. It played out to the upside, which is quite nice. And now we're in a similar situation again, honestly, because 19K, if you have the daily range from the 18th of June 2022, basically that low on the left side.
Yep.
I mean, we're basically retesting that right now. So we're doing the same thing that we've done like plenty of times in this kind of pattern. We've seen so many times where you have a range, you break it to the downside, you go sideways, and then you start moving back into the range. And that's what we're doing right now. It's resistance, and this one is actually like a credible resistance. I didn't see anything below this as credible. But honestly, I think if we wanted to break down in general, and if we wanted to be bearish, we wanted like this range that we had for the last 2 months would have played out to the downside. It didn't, so I'm just going to be like, this just wants to go up, and we're back in the range, in the old range, and I'm expecting further upside. I don't really see why I would change my view. This is actually like exactly how I wanted it to look. Slow grind up into resistance, pop through the resistance, pop back into the old range. Couldn't look better, and I'm not gonna be fading this. And what I want to say, right, this doesn't have to be the bottom. It doesn't have to be the macro low. I mean, I tweeted that it might be, and I think there's a good chance that it is. But even if you're bearish, and this is the thing, right, these bears that I've been arguing with, I think they're just way early. And this is kind of caused by the fact that this bear market has been so brutal that the most stupid bears basically had a chance to strive because there was no counter trend move at all. There was nothing. So you could have been like 0 IQ short at every bottom. There's a very low chance that you could blown out because it didn't even go up like 50, 60, 70%, which it usually does, right? Bitcoin usually goes down 50, 60, 70% and then bounces the same amount, which obviously takes it lower than the where it started at. But then it has like a proper move to the downside. In this instance, we had such a brutal bear market caused by the traditional markets that that didn't happen. So you had a bunch of bears that actually don't really know too well how to trade bear markets. A lot of them just kind of joined quite late into the bear market even, started going full bear tart and got paid for it. And I think the price action that we have right now is them getting fucked because they've kind of got bad trading habits. And they don't really see that. I mean, not every resistance has to do its job, right? You don't have to, like, one higher high, as in like one high that gets broken doesn't mean the bear market is over. And I think we could even break a couple highs and still be in the bear market, which is to say that I think we could go to 25 or even 32K and still be in the bear market and still go back to 16 or 14K, which would just carry out every single bear that I've seen be popularized on Twitter. But it's something that Bitcoin has done multiple times in the past. We've had massive bounces, and I don't really understand why you would want to be so aggressively shorting below 20K, which is basically the cycle high of 2017-18. I think if not for all these bad news, we would have probably held it and then had a rally that would have probably failed. But now that we broke it so aggressively to the downside and we're trading back into it, I think we can have quite a nice squeeze before we either go lower or before we just completely trend reverse. But yeah, I think people are just way too aggressive and want to kind of see this die without a single bounce, and I don't think that's necessarily logical or reasonable. But that's just my opinion, and obviously aided by the fact that I've been bullish and I've been buying, so I'm talking my bags here.
One of the distinctions that's been made between this post-breakdown consolidation and the 6K one is time, which is to say that, we went from 6K to 3K, we spent a lot more time at that range before that grind up pattern formed, and then we broke out and reclaimed, etc., etc. Whereas this time round, in comparison at least, it wasn't as long. Do you think that dents the argument that this is a 6K style reclaim, or do you think it's close enough and other factors just still make it like and like?
I think, and this might sound like a little bit weird, but I think we've basically been going sideways, or would have been going sideways for the last 210 days, as in the first time we hit 20K.
Right.
I think this is a deviation that only happened because of FTX, which means that, the bottom range in 2018 was not even half of that time, or like roughly half of that time. And I think basically we've been at the 3K level already at 20K, and we kind of dipped a little bit below it, which makes me believe that, there's a good chance that this is macro bottom, and we just traded at 16K because of very unfortunate circumstances. And now we're coming basically, if you want to use the 3K analogy, right? I would say like what we've been trading at has been 2.5K, as in lows that weren't made back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And we're now coming back into the range of 3K. And then we're going to see like, okay, like as in if we break 25K, that might start leading us towards like higher levels. And I think the 6K reclaim, maybe it's going to be 30K, like the same price action that we had at the 6K reclaim, 30K reclaim, as in we go straight back to 60K. But I don't want to target that. I don't even think it's too good of a comparison, honestly. I just want to trade level, as in like sensible level to level, which for me is basically we're bouncing off of support at 16K with a strong kind of narrative, with strong push and strong momentum. And the next level that is untested and is significant for me is 25K, if not 32K. Those are the only two levels I really care about. And I'm probably going to aim for 32K rather than 25, just because I think we could squeeze quite heavily because a lot of people are off sides. But we'll see once we get there. This is just something that I make my mind up once I see the level being kind of traded. I'm more than happy to take profits if I see something bad that I don't want to be seeing. But so far, like we've rallied a shitload, and I haven't really seen people switch their bias. If anything, I've seen people dig in their heels, and that usually leads to quite sustained rallies in my experience. And I can say this from experience because I remember I was quite bearish at 19K back in 2018, and then it went all the way down to 6K. And I was still bearish because like this is a bear market. It's gonna go lower than this even. I didn't short at that time. Like I closed my shorts quite a bit above 6K, but then it bounced to 12K, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, I just started questioning everything, and I was like, okay, am I just an idiot? Did I just get lucky by selling like quite high up? But no, it was just a bear market rally that bounced quite heavily, and I think we can do the same. So for me, I think there's some room to the upside, and I remember how I felt back then during that entire rally. I was like, okay, this is just stupid. All these people are stupid. Why are they bullish? Um, could be the same thing where it bounces and it doubles from 16K, which would take it to 32K, and then it just starts vanishing again. But unlike back then, I was just like, okay, these kind of rallies are possible, so I'm positioned properly for it, and I'm not going to do the same mistakes twice. So yeah, that's how I trade it.
Are there any concerns about short-term momentum? Like on the day, even on the daily time frame, it's basically like 10, 11 green candles in a row. Do you have any model for that slowing down, or does that make you uncomfortable holding positions that might be quite hard to manage if this thing starts to retrace, or do you not give that any weight?
No, I like the strength. I would be worried if this wasn't the case. I basically the grind up doesn't really count, and then you
Okay.
have like a couple, like you have 4 candles that are quite big with momentum. That's what you want to be seeing, and I want to see this thing. I mean, it's a weekend now, so I didn't even expect much for this weekend, but we are up. Like today, as in like a Friday, we're up 2.7 or something percent, and so it's going better than expected. But I'm expecting it to calm down during the weekend, which is going to make this chart look fucking amazing, right? Because basically what happened is we had a grind up, we had a pop, and then we're going to go sideways. And given that we're basically trading back above levels that we lost back in the middle of last year, I could see a lot of people kind of reconsider their stance and start just pouring in. And you can just see how many stable coins there are in crypto. There's a lot of money that can just shift back into crypto quite fast. We don't even need money from the outside. There's not like it doesn't really have to be like retail buying or just a new entrance into the market. It can just be people that have been on the sidelines waiting for the times to get better. And with price action that we have right now, like if you wanted to put a sign out into the world saying, hey, times are better, there's no better sign than price action like this, right? You just have like a straight move up, and a straight move up into a level that is 20K, which a lot of people expect to be the bottom, right? So when you look at it that way, and I tweeted this just right before the show, I said we're only 4% away from 20K. That just means we just need to go up 4% more to make people think that maybe, just maybe, everything below 20K was a massive discount and that they watched it. A good narrative. And then I think that's that's kind of how it's going to go, where a lot of people are just kind of like, well, fuck, I wanted to buy this thing at 20K. It looked bad. I didn't buy it. Now it went to 16K and it looked even worse. So I didn't buy it. But now it's coming back into 20K and it's actually like having a little bit of momentum. So I could see these people start stepping in, start kind of trying to get some exposure, because at the end of the day, we're all trading this thing because we think it's like there's a good chance it goes up. So if you just ignite a little bit of FOMO, I think this thing can go quite a while, given we had zero of that for more than a year, right? Because this is very atypical for crypto, that you just have zero strong movements whatsoever. Usually you get big movements to the downside coupled with big bounces. Haven't had any of that. And I think would be time to make some people FOMO back into their positions. And then if you want to be in a bear market, and I mean, who knows? I'm down for it to go down, but I think it's not really time for it right now.
What would be the first red flag around current prices, as we come into this 20 level, which is, as you said, it's important if you're bearish, it's important if you're bullish. It's kind of a clear line in the sand. As far as stuff that would make you raise your eyebrow or reconsider some exposure, is there anything that would kind of satisfy that?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back below 17.5K, I'm going to be very worried. Anything beyond that, I just think it's going to go up. Like, it has to go down a lot for me to reconsider, just based on how the chart looks, based how I know people are positioned, and based on kind of the bad news that got shaken off. There's a lot of reasons that I think support kind of the view that it's going to go up, and it has to go down a lot for me to kind of be disillusioned, which is quite nice. I mean, I bought the range, bought the range lows of like the lower range. Now we're trading in the higher range, but I'm willing to give back almost all of this just to have exposure, because the potential is great, and I would rather waste some of the gains I make during the early stages of a trade than close a trade during the early stages of it and then have no position. Because from what you can see here and on the low time frames, there's not really been any time to reposition for anyone, right? It's just been, it's a grind up, which basically people don't really notice. Besides the bears that showed it because they start sweating, and they oftentimes add because they think they can kind of make it better that way, because they've been rewarded for doing this the entire bear market. And then you go straight up, which people notice. And if you go up into levels like this, you just need some time for people to kind of get even more FOMO-y. And that's what this weekend is for. I'm expecting it to just go sideways. If it goes up, great. If it goes down a little, not that bad. If it goes down a lot, that would not be nice. But I'm just not expecting that. So for me, I mean, I've been babbling on, but 17.5K, you lose that, starts looking really shitty. Unless that happens, I'm just expecting 20, 22, 25, if not higher.
I know you hate this question, given you were shilling it at the lows, but if someone didn't have an entry at the moment and they wanted to catch a piece of this upside that you're forecasting, what do you think would be reasonable? Would it be the sort of consolidation, pullbacky type of stuff, as long as it's around sort of above 19? Would it be any just scary looking down days, given how you think they'd resolve? Is it lower time frame consolidations, given that this kind of momentum tends to lock you out? What would that look like for someone reconsidering, for example?
It's pretty hard if you're reconsidering now. You had a lot of time to reconsider any of the last 3 days. At any point, you could just buy into Breakout. Because the thing is, if you don't buy the range lows, you have to buy the Breakout, right? If you want to buy it all, obviously, because there's not gonna be, if you're right, like if I was thinking this way, right? I have to buy here, and I said this on a lot of streams too. I was like, I have to buy here because if it goes up, I'm not gonna get an entry. And this is very true now. Like, where do you buy? Do you buy if it starts fading this, right? Where do you buy? Is it 18K? Is it 19K? I mean, it's trading at 19.3K right now. It's really, really, really difficult. And I'm very much not a breakout trader. I know a lot of people that can do it really well. I know that I cannot. It's really hard to position properly. It's hard to get in size. You get kind of like, you buy it and then it starts fading you, and you're like, I bought this way above where I would want it to where I wanted it to buy. It's shitty, and I hate these kind of situations because it's really, really like you cannot make a good choice. I think if it just goes sideways here, and you want to buy, you just buy. It's this kind of situation where anything, I think any close back into the weekly range or above the weekly range is like a buy setup, as in like you close above 20K on the weekly time frame. That seems really, really good. Problem is, it could go and wick towards 18K before going further up. So you have to have like a very loose stop loss situation and very high risk. And this is why I don't do it. Like, this is why whenever people ask me, I'm like, just like, why are you not listening to me when it's lower? Because now that it's high, you have to listen to someone that actually knows how to properly breakout trade, and that's not me. I know how to trade when it's like trading low, when I can buy it. I know when it's new king that I can buy it properly, but when it's going up like this, there's not really like a support level that I want to see retested, because best case scenario, people stay locked out. So in my best interest, I wouldn't want this to retest anything. So like I'm not even like, if you look at the price, where could there be a support level? Like maybe at 18.4, you could kind of make a support level on the daily chart based on the lowest close of the left side. That maybe is like a level, but I don't necessarily even want that retested, given I know that people are locked out, and I know people are asking themselves, where do I buy it? And I want them to buy higher. So yeah, it's a tough question. I think 18.4, that's the one level that I could see that is reasonably close. And the bulls are still valid at that point, that you could make the argument for it. But yeah, I don't think there's a good answer to it. And there's never a good answer to kind of like, how many days has it been that we've had green candles? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then one tiny red one. So basically 9, 10, 11-ish green candles almost in a row, like with tiny red ones in between. At some point, you feel stupid buying it, right? And I get that, and I have no good answer. I don't know. Have you any like price level that you think would be nice to retest where you could buy it? Because I don't.
Sorry, it's not actually polite or customary to ask the interviewer questions, so I've got another one for you. You mentioned 25 and 32 as
Yeah.
big high time frame resistance levels. Is there anything in between or before that that would be at least sort of mental checks or first trouble areas where you don't want to see some sort of big spike, trap, stitch up, or is it all noise until the top of the old range, which is 25, and then the 3AC gap, which is closer to 30? Like, for
Oh,
example, if it just comes in and spikes the most recent swing high at like 21, for example, and then
yeah.
kind of reverts stuff like, could any of that act as signal within the parameters of your swing trade, or is it just like breakout 25, 32? If it's not those, I'll give it back. Fuck you.
No, I like nothing. Nothing could really. This really, it's an odd answer to give as a trader, right? But there's not that much that could change my mind. If we go back up, like if let's say we go to 23 or something, or 22, and we close the week there, and then we start losing the 20K level again, that would be a big warning sign. We haven't even regained it yet, so that's a little bit early
Sure.
to say. If we get rejected here by this 20K level, and then just start heading down and start losing 18K, and then go into the 17Ks, it starts looking really bad. Like that's one of the things. Like if we just get rejected here, which I think is not necessarily super likely, but it's possible, that'd be a bad thing. As in, if we don't even make it to that high. But if we close back above 20K, anything that closes above 20K is okay. So if it runs to 24 and then comes back to 20K, still think that's a buy, still think you want to be holding and you want to be aiming for higher. So basically it revolves around 20K again. If we lose it after having gained it, that's a bad sign. If we don't reclaim it at all, like as in we get rejected here now and we go to 18 or 17.5, that's a bad sign. Obviously, I mean, price going down, not that nice if you're bullish. But other than that, like this is one of the biggest ranges and one of the biggest narrative breakdowns that we've had. Like we had this, okay, we're never gonna, it started out with we're never gonna test 20K because Bitcoin doesn't retest prior highs, right? And then we went to 20K and I was like, okay, it's went beyond what we thought possible, but it's 20K, it's gonna hold. And then we broke that. And that kind of broke all hope, I think, because all the narratives went out the window. You had the Bitcoin maxis didn't have the stock to flow thing anymore. That got broken ages ago, even though it got remodeled like 5 times. And then we also had the technical traders kind of lose their mind, being like, okay, 20K is gone. It's a new paradigm. We're all fucked. And well, now we're trading back in that 20K range ish anyway. So I think it's too significant of a level to ignore. We close above it, you want to be bullish until we lose it again, which I don't think would happen anytime soon if we closed above it.
And 20K, again, to clarify, is some amalgamation of 19.3, 19.5, basically the summer range lows, right?
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Cool. That makes sense. Let's move on to ETH. So again, the monthly there is green. Nice. But structurally, it's just kind of, I think the prevailing thing has been, we sort of wrote about this as a sort of decent line in the sand on the monthly, is as long as you're getting monthly closes above 1.1, it can't look awful. Below that, it certainly does, but bigger picture, that held. Although it was painful at times, to be completely honest, that sort of 1.1, 1.2. Now, the more recent level that you and I discussed was 1.3, that range low underside retest, sort of 1270, 1280, etc. Sorry for that noise, sticky keys, whatever. And that got broken on the last weekly close, right? You had the underside of that, the highest kind of close came in at 1280s, and then we closed above it last week, and then sort of this week has been acceleration. Interestingly, at the same time, in line with what you were saying about the BTC dominance type of run and rotation, ETH BTC kind of puked a little bit, at least puked relative to the range that it's been in. Like on the daily, it's probably most evident, where it rallied up all the way to the highs, and these last 2 down days have been quite big. But on the USD front, that's essentially left us above 1300, and I think at least one level that we did discuss was this potential trouble area at 1400, which has now been reached. So 1300 break, good, continuation into 1400. No weekly higher high yet. I mean, same with BTC, etc. I'm just wondering, how do you square these charts? Because at a certain point, it was skewed towards ETH, where it was at support while Bitcoin was below support. And so we had that whole relative strength lead lag type of discussion. Whereas now for ETH, there isn't as clear range low retest / reclaim type of scenario. But market structure, at the very least, is providing contextual levels around the same place. So I guess first question is, do you give a shit about this 1400 resistance level, which is kind of the weekly level and the prior all-time high? And if not, what do you think is a reasonable kind of measured move from the 1300 breakouts? For BTC, for example, you said like 25, 32, whatever. Are there kind of equivalent legs or levels in ETH on the weekly that kind of line up with those targets? And if so, where are they?
It's kind of funny because ETH went from the easy trade to the hard trade, right? As in, like, you had obvious, or like not necessarily super obvious, but you had strength there, right? And you could see it. And I was like, okay, if you want to bet on something, bet on ETH. And that worked for quite a while. And now that Bitcoin just ran, it turned on its head. And now the obvious trade is just like, it seems to be Bitcoin, and ETH is very hard. And for me, just looking at this chart, ignoring all else, it's actually not that good looking. It's still battling resistance, as you said, at 14K, 15K being like the all-time high, I think, if I remember.
I think you took the liberty of adding a zero there. You mean 1400 and 1500?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about the future, dude. But the 1400 and 1500, right? It's struggling with resistance. It's not really going, but I think that's quite reasonable. Like I said, given because people just rotate into Bitcoin, and you see a bunch of, like, Bitcoin goes up so much that you actually get FOMO for Bitcoin, and a bunch of altcoin holders just start rotating into Bitcoin. And then you have opportunistic traders taking advantage of that too, knowing that they can squeeze out altcoin holders by just pushing prices down a little, and then altcoin holders just start freaking out. There's nothing worse, and this is something we've seen time and time again, than seeing Bitcoin rally and sitting in an altcoin and it not moving. Like, if that goes on for too long, you start losing your mind and you start doing dumb shit, right? And I think that's basically what's happening with ETH. It broke out above 1300, which is good news. It's trading quite strongly on its own, but it's just way overshadowed by Bitcoin. And I think there's a good chance that as long as Bitcoin shows strength, that's going to continue. So maybe we're going to get ETH to grind up towards 1500, which is the last real big resistance before 2.5K. So maybe we get a grind up into that while Bitcoin is showing strength, and then Bitcoin calms down a little and you get a big pop from ETH. Would make sense to me. That's kind of like how I expect these altcoin trades to go. Basically, like if you're an altcoin maxi, if you love ETH, if you love Litecoin, I still have positions in both. I shifted into Bitcoin before this move a little bit, but I still own like some of these altcoins just because I don't want to give up the position. But whenever you have these strong moves, you have to expect this too. And there's a chance even that you're gonna see Bitcoin go up, as in like if we break the next resistance or if we show good strength on Bitcoin next week, you could see Bitcoin go from 19K to 25K, and you could see ETH go from 1400 to 1300. And that's gonna make people capitulate. Always has, always will. Like we've seen that kind of price action during the 2017 bull market. We've seen that on a lot of bounces of Bitcoin. It's basically a way to shake you out of decent positions. And it's a way for rotators to make a lot of money. Basically, you rotate into Bitcoin and then you rotate into altcoins. And I think that's another part of what's happening. Basically, a lot of smart people are like, oh, Bitcoin is showing strength. We've seen this before. If it shows more strength, the altcoins are going to bleed out. So we're going to rotate into Bitcoin, front run that, so we can rotate back into the altcoins. We've seen a bunch of that. So as long as Bitcoin is showing that strength, I'm not sure altcoins will outperform. Doesn't make much sense to me, which basically means, yeah, we broke out. I don't think it's going to lead to much in the short term. I think there is a chance that it's going to squeeze quite hard later on, but I don't think that's necessarily the time for it. But I like the chart anyway. Like I like the ETH USD chart. I like the ETH BTC chart a lot. If that goes down a lot, I'm gonna buy a shitload of ETH. Until it does, I'm just very relaxed.
Where does down a lot line up on ETH BTC?
Oh, ETH
is it the
BTC
0.05 range low, or is it closer to
yeah.
0.04, 0.035?
No, 0.056. That's down a lot for me, which I talked about actually like last week, I think, even where I was like, I could see ETH go down, ETH BTC go down 20%. But that wouldn't necessarily be okay because ETH has to go down against the dollar, just means Bitcoin has to go up 20% and ETH doesn't take part. And I could see that be the case. And 20% of a Bitcoin move would take Bitcoin to 24K, which is basically the next resistance after 20. And imagine how hard anyone would be coping if they held ETH into that. 1400, bought 1400, Bitcoin goes up 20%, and you're still sitting at 1400. That's going to make you reconsider things, and it's going to make you make mistakes. So I think that's kind of the stage of the market we're in. Maybe that's top talk, but I don't think so. Like I'm pretty chill. I think there's going to be a rotation into altcoins eventually. I think it could take a while longer though. And the same is true for Litecoin, really. And the same is true for XRP. Same is true for every single altcoin out there.
No changes, presumably, on the Litecoin front. It's trading around its prior swing high on the weekly. And your target for that, I think that at least the first trouble area is some version of 100, the of pre-breakdown level. And I think your invalidation is probably the same as well, right? That obviously, if there's something you don't like in BTC, that position you'll reconsider or at least think about it. Otherwise, the weekly highest close at 77 or something thereabouts, you don't want to see us closing back below that. But that aside, it's still your monthly swing trade kind of playing out essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously showing weakness against Bitcoin right now, and even like it's been green every day. Like it's been most of the day, it's been green in the last few days. It's just today it's been struggling to keep up with Bitcoin, but that's okay by me. That's kind of expected. And actually, that's what I want to see, because I want to see continued Bitcoin strength that will fuel a lot of these altcoins down the line. At the moment, you get a little bit more attention to crypto again, and the best way to do that is just push Bitcoin a little bit higher. You're gonna see some money flow into altcoins again. But yeah, with regards to Litecoin, my thesis hasn't changed. I'm looking at the high time frames. I'm looking at the halving, which is in, I think it's like 6 months ish. It's actually 8, but I think it's 8. Let me check. I have it written down somewhere. Yeah, it's 7 months from now. That's kind of what I'm trading around. So I'm not gonna change anything there. I'm very happy with the position. It's been performing better than Bitcoin since I bought it. And that's all I care about. As long as that maintains, and they would have to drop a lot against Bitcoin for it to reverse that course, I'm down. It's basically, I bought Litecoin instead of Bitcoin because I was like, I see more upside in that. And so far it's performed. And I don't want to make the same mistakes I've made in the past, which was closing positions too early most of the time. I get the bottoms right. I get like a 2x, 3x, or sometimes 20%, 30% in the bear market rallies, and then I close it and it goes up quite a bit more. That's what I used to do a lot, and it's a good trading strategy. I think for most people, it's actually advisable, because that way you're not going to lose everything. You're just going to steadily make gains, and you're going to be jealous of the people that hold. But in the end, you're going to be rewarded for it, because they're going to give all the stuff back that they've made. And what I'm kind of currently trying to do, and it's been working quite well, is combining both, as in getting rid of positions early when I see them be weak, but also being able to hold on for a little bit to positions that I like. And I mean, I was pretty certain Litecoin and ETH would be outperformed by Bitcoin. But I was just like, I don't want to trade this around too much, because you get lost in this low time frame stuff too easily. And then it's really hard to get back into these positions, right? You can make 10% here, 10% there, but that's not really what it's about when you kind of get the higher time frame direction, right? And I don't want to trade around it too much, because I think that's gonna make me lose sight of what I want to make, like what I want to achieve with the positions, which is basically just like have a really good position for narratives that I think will play out in the future. So 10% up, 10% down, especially if it's just like a 10% down move against Bitcoin, and the USD pair still goes up. Like, I'm not gonna be the one that complains. But I'm very happy that I have a bunch of Bitcoin too, because otherwise I'd be coping as well. I hate to see my portfolio value go down in USD on a day where Bitcoin's up 2.5%.
Any other altcoins have your interest aside from the eventual rotation? I mean, you mentioned XRP. Presumably that, like, those really become relevant within your framework once Bitcoin puts in another leg, right? Because that's when you expect
Yes.
the rotation to be mistimed by those who missed out on Bitcoin, and timed well for those rotating out of strength. So presumably, when we record next week or the week after or whatever, that's when some of these, ideally within your framework, Bitcoin's consolidating, and then we can take a look at some relative pairs and USD pairs for alts, and see what can catch up or catch a decent rotation, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah, I like XRP. I have a list of things that I like, and it's growing every day, which is quite cool. I like XRP. I like XMR. I like Uniswap. It's actually one of my favorites for some reason. I like
Cosmos.
I like Cosmos a lot. Yeah, Atom. It just looks really good. Obviously, gonna take a hit. Obviously, not gonna look too great while Bitcoin is rallying. But I think it's gonna be one of the ones that is gonna show the most strength after Bitcoin's done. And yeah, that's like Lido. I also want to buy the dip on, but that's gonna be hard because a lot of people want to, and it's been squeezing, and there's too many eyes on it right now. So that's going to be a tough one. I would rather not miss out on it, but I could see myself just not have a setup to buy it properly. So like, there's a bunch of altcoins that I like. Litecoin still being my favorite, but I don't think they're necessarily the greatest buy right now. I think that's down the line, but I could be wrong on that front. That's why I have a bunch. That's why I have a little bit of ETH. That's why I have a little bit of Litecoin. That's why I have a little bit of XRP, because I think if I'm wrong, I would hate, like if I'm wrong on the timing, but I would hate it. I'd much rather have the position and then add to it when I think the timing is right, and then not have the position, miss the timing, and then just be completely empty-handed, because this is something that everyone's been experiencing before. I've made that experience before where I'm like, okay, I have a really good position, but I think I can squeeze out a little bit more. You sell it, and then it rallies 20% in one day because whatever, either a news piece comes out or it just for the fun of it. And then you're there and you have to wonder, okay, do I actually want to buy this up 20%? And oftentimes the answer to that would be yes, but you don't want to because you just sold this a day ago. And then it goes up another 50 or 60 or 100%, and you're giga coping. I don't want to be in that position. That's why I have a little bit. I'm going to rotate because I think the rotation play is the smartest one, and more into it as we go along. But right now, I think Bitcoin's still king and will probably remain king going into next week.
As far as legacy stuff goes, has any of that caught your interest? I mean, S&P 500, I was going to say BTC 500, which would have been accurate as well. But S&P 500 back above 3,900, both on a daily and a weekly closing basis, which has helped. Dollar has been pukey for sure. Now reaching the lower extremity of, moving towards the 100 handle more than anything. So do you basically expect that to continue? And at this point, do you even care? Because you started off by saying, this is almost a crypto native move, and that sort of short-term decoupling, or at least the impulse was to some extent decoupled in its magnitude. Do you see yourself ignoring legacy for the next week or two outside of something outrageous and just focusing on the rotations you mentioned within crypto?
Yes.
Or do you still have one eye towards this stuff?
No, I think it's it's nice that we're gonna see, if the next 2 hours don't go to completely horrendous, that we're gonna see a S&P close above resistance. It's kind of interesting because it's closing exactly at that boomer meme line that we've talked about a couple times in the past. Do you have that trend line for going from like the high across? Like that's exactly where we're gonna close. But yeah, I'm just going to ignore it. I could see next week be a little bit of a red one, retesting 3.9K. I could see it go up. I don't really think it matters too much. It's going to matter a little bit. If it goes up, it's a tailwind that we could use, but I don't really care for next week. It's going to be important for the week after again, I think. We need this to be strong for continued strength in crypto, I think, but I don't need it to be strong right now. It's more than enough that it's going to close above resistance, and it's closed well. It's going quite well on the monthly chart as well. So that's kind of my main concern. If we start losing 3.7K on the monthly on the S&P, that's why I start getting like very worried in general. Anything beyond that, especially given we had this crypto move that was completely outside of what you would expect given the S&P, I don't really care too much, which is quite nice. First time in a long time that I was able to say that and actually mean it. So yeah, it's quite nice.
Makes sense. Duck, our last couple of episodes have been quite long, and the news this week is fairly boring. From the stuff I've got saved, Crypto.com cut some people. SEC charges Gemini and Genesis with unregistered securities, as always, once the customers have been wrecked and their funds are frozen, and once there's no help in sight, or hope at this point. Of course, the SEC comes in for the cheap victory. Alameda liquidators get liquidated on Aave. So again, just more incompetence from the estate, showing that they don't really know how to use DeFi, and they've done some weird stuff on-chain. It doesn't make any sense.
It's very embarrassing.
Yeah, in an attempt to retrieve assets, so classic embarrassment there. BlockFi increased some executive salaries before bankruptcy, or around that time. So, the equity got wiped out, and obviously losing money as an executive is unacceptable. So you just raise your salary instead, even though that goes exactly against how the business is supposed to work. Where if your equity gets wiped out, I mean, that's par for the course, but your customers shouldn't be affected. But I guess raising salaries is a cool way to get around that. Gala Games tweets about partnership with The Rock and Mark Wahlberg, and then deleted a tweet and posted some weird sort of clarifier, which didn't clarify anything. So it looks like we're in sort of opportunistic shitcoin announcement season. And then another staff cut from Coinbase, 20% in another round. They've got like 5,000 employees or something crazy, or they had several thousand, so I guess just more bloat cut across the ecosystem. But I just thought, not terribly interesting, and also might be worth doing a price-oriented episode, given the main news has been the price. So should we keep this one a bit shorter?
Yeah, I would say so. I've been talking a lot. My mouth's dry.
Awesome. Final question. What would sort of apocalypse, worst case, doomsday, before next week's episode scenario look like? Presumably it'd be BTC focused, given that's a core part of your argument. But what would the kind of, wow, holy shit type of price action look like if it were to happen next week?
So if this weekend we get a massive nuke that goes below 18.3K, which is the highest wick that we had during the consolidation. We go significantly below that, close to week like that, with a massive wick to the upside into 19K resistance, as in if we get rejected here exactly. I think that would be the worst that we can have, as in the complete momentum dies out and then we actually close the week horrendously. That'd be really bad news. So that's something you don't want to be seeing. Anything beyond that, beyond the giant nuke, I don't really see like a good setup for bears here. If anything, the setup is going to be coming in next Monday or Tuesday. Like you can fade something. Like if I wanted to short this, right? And if I was very bearish and I was like, okay, 1920K is going to hold. How I would want to be trading I would want to wait for this weekly to close at resistance or around resistance. Then I would wait for next week, Monday or Tuesday, to push into 20.5, maybe 21.5, that previous high before we giga nuked. I would look for a short there, and then I would hope that entire week just closes red. That would start looking horrendous next week, as in like a close back below 19K, even though we traded above 20 or 21. That's the kind of setup I would be looking for. I don't really think the short at 19K is it. I'd much rather, like if I was a bear, which I'm not, I'm a bull and I'm going to hold through all of this. But if I was a bear, I would be looking for a short at 21.5 next week, as in after this candle has closed. Anything before then, I think you just have too much momentum. I don't really see it. And even that, I think, is a stretch given what we've just been going through. Like with a little bit of context, it's really hard to be bearish here. I hope I'm not going to follow my nose having said that, but I don't just given the experience that I have in this market, this would be shocking to me if it just faded completely next week. It just doesn't make much sense to me.
Cool. All right, that's us done. Nice price action focused episode. Usual content stuff coming up next week. Monday markets, newsletter, duck stream, more casual Friday. And yeah, thank you for joining us. Hope you'll have a wonderful weekend. As always, click like, subscribe, leave a comment, do all sorts of YouTube algorithm stuff. Don, have an excellent weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye-bye.